Good evening. We're coming on the air tonight with breaking news. The world remembering former President Jimmy Carter, who has died at the age of 100 at his home in Plains, Georgia. The Carter Center says the nation's 39th and longest living president was surrounded by family until the very end. He had faced a series of health challenges and spent these last nearly 2 years in hospice care. The former president's remembered for his rise from peanut farmer to governor to the presidency after he burst onto the national political stage and won the White House in 1976. But it's his post-presidency push for peace and human rights that remains one of the most remarkable pieces of his legacy. Tonight, new remembrances from leaders around the world and from loved ones honoring Jimmy Carter with plans for a state funeral in the days ahead. Our Lester Holt starts us off.
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
He went from being Jimmy Who to winning the White House itself, then struggled with crises overseas and a troubled economy at home. A one-term president whose time as ex-president was the longest and among the most active in American history. James Earl Carter Jr., he always went by Jimmy, was born in small-town Plains, Georgia, growing up on a farm without electricity or indoor plumbing. He attended the U.S. Naval Academy, married Rosalind Smith, a friend of his sister's, eventually becoming governor of Georgia.
The time for racial discrimination is over.
A year later, he ran for the White House.
I'd like to announce that I am a candidate for president.
And won. A born-again Christian who promised voters, "I will never lie to you."
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
At his best, he scored historic achievements, leading successful peace talks between Egypt and Israel. But closer to home, when the economy tanked, so did Carter's popularity. He seemed to blame Americans themselves.
The erosion of our confidence in the future.
And it got worse. In Iran, scores of Americans were taken hostage. And then came a grueling re-election battle.
I'll bring new hope to America.
Jimmy Carter lost in a landslide. Through it all, Carter was sustained by his faith.
You were faced with some huge crises as president. Did you drop down to your knees and pray?
Often, yes. Often. In fact, I prayed more per day, per hour, while I was president than any other 4 years in my life.
And his defeat marked the beginning of a remarkable post-presidency. He established the Carter Center, committed to advancing human rights and democracy. Carter built houses for the poor, and in 2002 was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. An extraordinary ex-president, proud of his years in the White House.
Kept the peace. We never went to war. We told the truth. Never lied to the American people. Never misled the American people. So in general terms, I feel perfectly at ease with my term.
He brought discipline and devotion to everything he did, including his battle with cancer.
Everything's been a blessing for me. So I'm thankful and hopeful.
Despite the diagnosis, he continued building houses alongside Rosalind and marked their 75th wedding anniversary in 2021.
75 years, I can't predict.
Rosalind died 2 years later, marking the longest presidential marriage in history. In 2024, Carter marked another milestone, his 100th birthday, with an outpouring of gratitude for his life of service. He brought that devotion to everything he did for family and for country until the end.
Our Lester Holt there, remembering former President Carter. NBC News Chief Washington correspondent Andrea Mitchell joins me now. Andrea, you knew the former president. You covered him for years. What do you see as the lasting impact of his time in the White House?
Well, in the White House, his presidency was certainly highly marked with triumphs and tribulations, as Lester recounted. Triumphs, of course, including the Camp David Accords, which remains one of the most consequential Middle East peace deals to this day, and for which he won the Nobel Peace Prize. Among his tribulations, the oil crisis that started overseas and then caused soaring gas prices, inflation along gas lines, the energy crisis here at home. He was a newcomer to Washington. He did not have strong relations with Congress. He struggled to get many of his programs passed. And in 1979, of course, the Iran hostage crisis, overwhelming the final year of his presidency. The hostages were taken November 4th, 1979. They were released memorably January 20th, right after Ronald Reagan, moments after he was sworn into the presidency. So it was clearly a decision by Iran, by the Ayatollahs, to deny Jimmy Carter the solace of getting those hostages home. But of course, Hallie, it was his post-presidency, as Lester referred to, that was so remarkable. His work for Habitat, his extraordinary advocacy for human rights, and of course, the champion that he was for global health. Hallie?
Andrea Mitchell, thank you so much. Glad to have you with us tonight. We'll be talking with you more, I know, in the days ahead. I want to bring in now NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli, who was traveling with President Biden in the U.S. Virgin Islands on this holiday week. And Mike, new reaction tonight from both President Biden and President-elect Trump.
That's right, Hallie. Tonight, the nation's 46th president is preparing to lead Americans in mourning the 39th. President Biden tonight ordering a state funeral to honor a man he calls an extraordinary leader, statesman, and humanitarian. In a statement, Biden is also saying, for anyone in search of what it means to live a life of purpose and meaning, the good life, study Jimmy Carter, a man of principle, faith, and humility. He showed that we are a great nation because we are a good people. Biden has said he plans to deliver eulogy for the former president, one that will likely draw on their decades-long relationship. In 1976, Biden, then a young senator, was the first politician outside of Georgia to endorse Carter's candidacy. In office, both men faced similar challenges, working to bring peace in the Middle East and secure the release of American hostages. But ultimately, the country's economic struggles contributed to them sharing another distinction as one-term presidents. The man who will succeed Biden next month is also paying tribute tonight. President-elect Trump saying the challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Biden was scheduled to return to Washington on Wednesday, and now with less than 3 weeks left in office, one of his final duties will be to lead a nation in mourning a fellow member of the President's Club. Hallie?
Mike Memoli, thank you very much. Former President Carter left Washington in 1981, but he didn't depart the world stage. He mediated global disputes and observed elections in troubled countries. Peter Alexander explains why Mr. Carter is often referred to as America's greatest former president.
No one's had a longer and perhaps more productive post-presidency than Jimmy Carter. His 4 decades out of office spent promoting peace, democracy, and human rights. But that path was not immediately clear, even to him.
When I left the White House, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had been defeated unexpectedly, from my point of view.
In 1982, he founded the Carter Center, waging peace, fighting disease, and building hope. He remained committed to statesmanship overseas, traveling to more than 125 countries.
Jimmy Carter recognized that being an ex-president opened doors for him, and he was determined to use that access for doing as much good as he could in the world.
Serving as a freelance ambassador of sorts, Carter met foreign leaders, led international missions, and mediated disputes, pressing some of the world's notorious dictators, like in North Korea, where he helped secure the release of an imprisoned American, and making a historic visit to Cuba, meeting with Fidel Castro while calling on the U.S. to improve relations with the communist country. Still, his diplomatic work was not always sanctioned by the U.S.
Jimmy Carter was a bit of an irritant, I think, to a lot of presidents who succeeded him, because he was very frequently interjected himself into political matters, particularly issues of foreign affairs.
But his efforts over the years earned him respect and recognition, including the Nobel Peace Prize, promoting peace and health initiatives in more than 80 countries, and monitoring democratic elections around the world.
To call Jimmy Carter the greatest former president in history, as many have, however, does not do justice either to him or to his work.
Carter's hands-on approach was unmistakable, alongside his wife Rosalind tirelessly building thousands of homes with Habitat for Humanity over 35 years.
What kind of person do I want to be?
And sharing his lessons in the pews, teaching Sunday school well into his 90s. A man of faith and a life guided by service.
The bond of our common humanity is stronger than the divisiveness of our fears and prejudices. God gives us a capacity for choice. We can choose to alleviate suffering. We can choose to work together for peace. We can make these changes, and we must.
Peter Alexander, NBC News.
Joining us now here on set is NBC News political analyst Jonathan Alter. He wrote one of the definitive books on Jimmy Carter's life. He knew the former president. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
My pleasure.
You heard Peter lay out what Jimmy Carter did after his presidency here, all the work he did on the global stage that in so many ways helped to define him and his legacy. Why was this work, do you think, so important to him?
Because Carter didn't want to be one of those former presidents who just played golf and picked up big speaking fees. He wanted to help people, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And one night, he woke up in the middle of the night, not long after he left the presidency, and he said, maybe I could do for other conflicts what I did at Camp David when I was president. So he founded the Carter Center, and they did really path-breaking work on global health, democracy promotion, conflict resolution, all the big issues of the 21st century. He was intimately involved in until he was in his mid-90s.
He was continuing to be active. He voted even right up until the end, right in this past election. He had a rise that was unlikely in politics, from peanut farmer, rather famously, to the presidency.
So Carter was born 100 years ago, 1924, but it might as well have been in the 19th century in Plains, Georgia. They had no running water, no electricity, no mechanized farm equipment, and he was barefoot for most of the year. This was the Jim Crow South, intense racism, and he transcended all of that. You know, as he grew up, and he ended up bringing diversity to the Georgia state government and the federal government for the first time. So the journey that he took from this childhood is an epic American story. So beyond his life in politics, this is just an astonishing journey that he went on.
He was also a man of deep faith. We talked about him teaching Sunday school. He did that late into his life here. That was something that he felt defined him and the people around him.
Yeah, and you know, attending some of his Sunday school classes before, a few times before or after I interviewed him for his very best, my book, you know, I was just taken by the authenticity of his faith. And in talking to him about his faith, he was arguably the most devout Christian ever to hold the position as president of the United States. And he really did. He wasn't a saint, made plenty of mistakes. And, you know, he could be cold sometimes, but he tried to live a life that he thought would be worthy of Jesus Christ.
Is there a memory tonight or a moment, Jonathan, that you are holding with you as you think about Jimmy Carter, as you think about the days ahead, laying him to rest, that state funeral, and what his life has meant?
You know, for some reason, I keep going back to when I helped him build a house for Habitat for Humanity, and he you know, helped me learn how to hammer better. And he was in his mid-90s. He was sinking these nails with no problem. And, you know, he didn't actually run Habitat, but just lending his stature to it has made Habitat for Humanity the largest builder of nonprofit housing in the entire world. So that just gives you a little indication of the many, many achievements this man had, both in office, and that's underrated, what he did in office, and after he left the presidency.
Jonathan Alter, one of the few, perhaps, who can say he was taught how to hammer by a former president. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
It's great to be here.
Appreciate it. Coming up, we'll have more on former President Carter's death, but we've also got to look at the other big headlines we're covering tonight, including the major investigation happening right now into that deadly plane crash in South Korea, captured on camera, while U.S. investigators are now heading there to help out.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep coming back. Start to break away from UC with Tremfya, with rapid relief at 4 weeks. Tremfya blocks a